Hey everyone, welcome to yoga. Happy Thursday. It's beautiful out. The sun is shining, about 70 degrees. I walked the lake with my daughter today. It was beautiful, and I've been sitting outside to do some of my work. I really have enjoyed that so far today. We're going to do a backbending practice tonight, easing our way into backbends. You will want to have a bolster, or in place of bolster, maybe a few pillows or a big thick comforter. Blocks are going to be handy for the first pose, but if you don't have blocks, I'm going to show you an alternative. And also maybe a strap as well, or a belt or a thick scarf or something. So to start, we're going to set up our blocks. We're going to start with a back bend. You'll start with your blocks on the medium height. One block is going to go vertical up and down your spine. The other block, it really doesn't matter which direction it goes. I typically turn mine horizontal. You can put it on the highest height, the medium height, or the lowest height. I think I typically like mine on medium height. The higher you go, the less of a back bend it's going to be. And then obviously the lower you go, it's going to be more of a back bend. The lowest height is going to be really hard on some people's necks if you have any neck issues at all. So probably keeping it on the medium height. And then we're going to start by lying over the block. I like the tip of my block, the very end of my block, to be about the bottom of my shoulder blades, the tip of my shoulder blades for women. It's about the bra line. And then you're just going to lie back, place your head on your block. Arms open up to the sides. You can bend your knees, plant your feet on the ground, or straighten your legs onto the ground. Then close your eyes. Find your breath. If you've been going today, just let yourself come to your practice, come to your mat, and find stillness. And I just realized I was going to show you an alternative. In place of your block, you can roll up a blanket and place it underneath your back and do a much gentler back bend. So just go right underneath the shoulder blades, and then you'll open up. So we're just going to take a few more breaths here. Full inhales, full exhales. In these back bending practices, it's nice to think about, so what can you be open to as we open up our hearts, open up the front body. And if you feel resistance to that sense of opening, can you breathe into those places and create less resistance? And then take just a couple more breaths. And then when you're ready, you're going to roll to one side, over onto a forearm, and slowly bring yourself up to seated. And we're going to continue just a couple more moments of breathing. You can sit up onto a blanket if you'd like. So just close your eyes. Come back to that sense of stillness. ahead and keep your eyes closed. I'm just going to read you some thoughts from Judith Lassiter in her book, Living Your Yoga. So the Yoga Sutra verse that she's talking about says, the posture should be steady and comfortable. And she says this, throughout the years, I have the tendency in myself and others to think that we must practice boot camp yoga. That is, the poses must be difficult, even painful, to be beneficial and worthwhile. Sadly, we do not practice to find the comfortable, but to overcome ourselves and conquer the pose. In reality, our thoughts about the poses reflect our thoughts about ourselves. It is not uncommon for students to berate themselves with self-judging internal dialogue during practice. I saw this tendency more clearly in myself after listening to an exchange between a friend and my daughter, who was 3 years old at the time. My friend asked her if she did yoga. Looking up from her play, my daughter shook her head no, declaring that she did pranayama. Pranayama is the term for breathing exercises. Out of the mouth of babes, I thought. Her answer reminded me that I too practiced pranayama. Many times in my practice, as well as other areas in my life, I responded from a place of judgment. Often my internal dialogue was negative and pejorative, causing me to inflict my yoga practice upon myself. And if I was doing that to myself, was I teaching my students? What was I teaching my students? How was I interacting with my family and friends? I began to pay attention to how often I judged myself. I was appalled to learn that most of my time, my inner dialogue was self-judgmental. But what really shook me was when I discovered something even more disconcerting. There is no way that I could be harsh toward myself and at the same time be compassionate to others. I realized also the process of silently putting myself down was actually a form of egoism. So as we work on our backbending practice, as we open our hearts, as we find those places of resistance, think on how you talk to yourself. Think on or inquire about, are you forcing yourself into a yoga pose? Are you inflicting yoga on yourself? Are you completing 108 sun salutations with full chaturangas when you should be backing off because you have a little bit of a shoulder injury? Do you think or believe you should be further in your practice? I've heard it said before, and in fact one of the trainings I did for a body positive style yoga is our mats should be judgment free. It should be a ceasefire zone. We cease fire with ourselves. We put a stop to that negative self-talk and that judgment. So as you open up in your backbending practice tonight, can you find those places where you're resistant, where you're inflicting yoga on yourself? Can you be open to exploring that a little further? Open to softening your talk with yourself. So just take a couple more breaths here. And then when you're ready, You're going to slowly open your eyes. You can keep your gaze soft. Move your blocks aside and make your way up onto hands and knees. We're going to plant our hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Let's just do a few rounds of cat-cow to warm up the spine. So when you're ready, inhale, lift your head and your tailbone, gaze up at the ceiling, heart reaches forward. Exhale, round your spine. Push the floor away as you round your spine. Inhale to rise back up. Exhale to round, pressing the floor away. Go ahead and go at your own pace. And when you're ready, inhale, come back to neutral position. Walk your hands forward, just about a hand's length. Toes curl under, lift your hips up and back. Take a downward dog. Ease your way into it. Don't force yourself right into the pose. Don't inflict downward dog onto your hamstrings. Maybe shake out your head and neck. And then from here, bend your knees, press your hands into the ground, and press your hips back. And slowly work to straighten the legs. They don't have to straighten. Just working that direction. Sitting bones widen and slide up an imaginary wall behind you. Inhale, come back onto hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Reach your right arm forward and your left leg back. Navel draws in. Hips stay mostly parallel to the ground. So if your toes are turning out to the left, point them down towards the ground, point your knee towards the ground. This is going to help to bring a little bit more evenness to your hips. Take a big inhale. And the navel draws in, draw elbow to knee. Inhale, press it out. Exhale, round. Inhale, lift. Exhale to round. Inhale, lift. Exhale, round. Last one, lift. And exhale, release. Other side. Left hand reaches forward, right hand reaches back, right leg reaches back. Navel draws in. Again, if your toes are turning away from your body, turn them towards the ground. Turn your knee down. Inhale. Exhale, elbow to knee. Inhale, reach. Exhale. And inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. One more time. Exhale. And reach. And go ahead and release. Walk your hands forward a bit. Take a downward dog. One more time. Pedal out the feet. Shake out the hips. Shake out the head and neck. Maybe lift a leg. Pop your toes. And then bend your knees. Press your hands down into the ground. From there, press the hips back. Slowly straighten the legs. Relax in the shoulders. Inhale, hands and knees. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips. From here, right hand forward, left leg back. Even those hips out again. We're going to do 5 of the next exercise. You're going to bend your back knee. Bend your arm. Inhale to lift. Exhale to soften. Inhale, lift. Exhale, soften. 3 more. Lift. Release. Lift. Release. Lift. Release. Last one, lift. Straighten the leg and arm. And exhale, release. Other side. Left arm forward. Right leg back. I have a tendency to hyperextend in the arm on these poses. I have to be really super mindful to soften in my elbow. Then the arm and leg. Inhale, lift. And release. Lift. Release. Lift. Release. Lift. One more. I lost count, so I'm going to do one more just to be safe. Exhale, straighten the arm, straighten the leg, and release. Downward dog, toes curl under, hips lift up and back. Bend the knees, press from your hands all the way back. Slowly straighten the legs. Inhale, come forward onto hands and knees. So for this next one, instead of hands being right underneath the shoulders, we're going to walk the hands forward. So that way when you lean forward, you're making a diagonal from your head to your knees. And we're going to come into a modified side plank. I'm going to face you first, but you can stay on your right leg. So bottom leg here, the foot can turn away from the midline, and that's fine. Bring your top hand onto your hip to start. You can stay here with hand reaching up, hand reaching forward. Or you can add a little bit more, and here's where the back bend happens. You straighten the back leg or lift the back leg, knee bends, and you're going to reach back, grab the top of that foot. You can also just reach foot and hand towards one another. See if you can kick your back leg into your hand. Top shoulder keeps rolling back. Heart keeps turning up towards the ceiling. Inhale, release. Hand to the ground. Let's take a quick puppy dog pose. So puppy dog, almost like child's pose, but the hips are lifted, arms stretch forward. Head does not need to touch the ground. Head can float. And then when you're ready, inhale, come back up onto hands and knees. Walk your hands forward a little bit so you're leaning onto your arms. You're going to step opposite leg back now. Roll over to the other side that you didn't do. Hand to hip. As an option, reach it up. Reach it forward. Or you can try the balancing version. This is a modified sugar cane pose. Grabbing onto your ankle. Shoulder rolls back, kick your foot into your hand, and then breathe. Inhale, hand and arm and leg reaches up and back. Come back onto hands and knees. Take a child's pose. So you can take your legs wide, you can keep your legs together. This time in child's pose, forehead can touch the ground. From here, inhale, make your way back up onto hands and knees. One more time, walk your hands forward so that way when you lean forward, you're at your diagonal. Elbows are going to stay hugging in, and then drop your chest to the ground. Straighten the legs. We're going to start with Cobra. And let's add a little movement. It's really good for the spine. So hands are at chest height, shoulders roll back, elbows draw in. Inhale, lift your head and your heart. Exhale, release back down. So you're going to kind of coil here. Inhale to lift. Exhale to release. Do it 3 more times. And the next time you make your way up, from here, you're going to dip your right shoulder, press into your opposite hand, left hand, and look over to the left. And do the other side. Inhale back to center. Bring your hands together, stack your hands, forehead to ground. Maybe shake your hips side to side a little bit. Some people find relief in the low back by turning the toes towards one another. All right, from here, forehead comes to the ground, hands come along your side. And you're gonna find your bus stop in your lotus pose here. So navel draws in, hips press down towards the ground. Inhale, lift your head. Maybe this is where you stay today. Or maybe lift your head a little bit higher, reach your hands back. Maybe here is where you stay, or maybe you lift the legs. Exhale, release. Bring your hands forward. Relax your head. If you turned your head to one side, turn it the other direction. Inhale back to center. This time, you're going to reach back and clasp your hands. If that doesn't work for you, you can use a strap here. So forehead starts on the ground. Inhale, lift the head. Keep your gaze down at the ground. You want to go a little bit further, roll the shoulders back. Reach hands towards feet. And if you want to go a little bit further, lift the feet. Exhale, release. Forehead to ground. Inhale back to center. We're going to do awkward grip. So opposite hand should, or opposite thumb should be on top now. Lift your head, stay here, or roll the shoulders, reach the hands towards the feet, and or lift the legs. Exhale, release. One last time. Head comes to your hands. And take your breath. Find your breath. And then as an option, we're going to do one more variation, and you can keep it really low. So you can bend your knees, reach your heels back towards your sitting bones, and you can keep it here. Shoulders roll back, hands are placed at about chest height. You can also start to press it up a little bit higher, like we do in our upward dog or our cobra pose. Just reach the heels back towards your head. Take one more breath. Exhale, release. From here, press up to your knees. Let's take a child's pose. Really breathe here into your low back. Down into your hips. When you're ready, make your way up to a seated position. So if in your forward fold you know that your hips are pretty tight, you're going to want to sit up onto a blanket and work on rocking your hips forward. And then we're going to set up our bolsters or pillows and blankets. So here I'm setting up, if you have blocks, the first block is going to be at the medium height. Second block is going to be at the highest height. So the furthest block away from me will be at the highest height. Then I'm going to take my bolster, place it over my blocks. And you can do as much height as you need here. So if this, when you fold forward, is still not enough height, you can start to just pile on the blankets and the pillows. You can also grab a chair and scoot the chair up. Maybe put a blanket on the seat of the chair and lean forward that way as well. That can be really nice and supportive. It's not nice and supportive if your back is hunched and rounded. So that's where it's going to be really important that you get a lot of lift under your hips. So maybe 2 or 3 blankets or a couple pillows under your hips. So that way when you lean forward towards your chair, you can keep your back mostly flat. And then I'm going to use one more blanket here. And then we're just going to fold forward towards our props. Hands can rest on the ground. Toes, you're going to want to drag your toes back towards you. And if you feel like you're almost there, almost to where you could tip your hips forward, press your heels into the ground, lift your knees a little bit, and kind of draw yourself forward. We're going to hold it here for several breaths, about 10 breaths or so. inhale, you're slowly going to start to sit up. We're going to move our props aside. Bring your legs forward. Make sure sitting bones are still walked back. Bring your hands back behind you. Press your hands into the ground to tilt your pelvis forward. And while we're at it, draw your shoulder blades together. Just gaze up at the ceiling. I like to pretend it's a nice sunny day and I have the sun on my face, soaking it up. Don't have to pretend this week. And then keep your pelvis tilted the direction. When you press your hands into the ground, it tilts your pelvis. Keep that and then start to fold forward. We can loop a strap around the feet. Heart stays open the whole way. And then when you're ready, on an inhale, walk yourself back up. And then we're going to cross the right foot over the left leg. There's a couple ways to do this pose. Some people's bodies just don't allow for the closed twist. So for that, you can keep your leg on the outside of the left leg and do a open twist. So the back of the arm is going to go against the leg and you're going to twist away from the leg. For the closed twist variation, you're going to bring your right hand back behind you. Press your hand into the ground. Left arm reaches up. Elbow comes to the opposite side of the knee. And then when you're ready, exhale to unravel. We'll do the other side. Again, taking it opened or closed. Right hand reaches up, left hand is back behind you, elbow to knee. Come into your twist. And exhale to unravel. We're going to make our way onto our backs. And you might want to block handy nearby, just in case. So from your back, feet are planted. Feet are about sitting bone distance apart. Heels are going to land about a hand's distance apart from your sitting bones. And then we're going to come into a bridge pose. We're going to start by rolling to one side and tucking the shoulder blade under onto your back. Go the opposite direction. Already this opens up your heart. Upper arms are going to stay planted firmly into the ground. Take a full inhale and a full exhale. And then on your next inhale, lift your hips up. And then we're going to see if we can come up a little bit higher by walking the shoulders under one more time. You can clasp the hands underneath, or you can lift your forearms and keep pressing into the ground. I'm going to hold it here for about 3 more breaths. you're ready, exhale to release your hips down. Knees draw into your chest. Hug your knees. Maybe rock back and forth a little bit. Or maybe you just like to feel the weight of the knees kind of pressing the back down. From here, lift your right leg up. Left leg straightens onto the ground. And you can use a strap here around the ball of your foot. Or you can just grab onto the back of the calf or the back of the thigh. We're just going to get in one more hamstring stretch. Feet are flexed on both legs. Lifted leg, the heel presses up towards the ceiling, toes draw back towards your face. And then from here, exhale, and bend the lifted leg. Take your left hand to your knee, right hand out to the right, and then we're just going to come into a little twist. Inhale back to center. Let's do the other side. So left leg reaches up, use your strap around the toes, base of the toes. Right leg straight. Grab onto the back of the right calf or the back of the thigh. Keep flexing the toes, pressing up through the lifted heel. Exhale to release. And then we're coming to our twist, twisting the leg over to the right. Inhale back to center. Draw both knees in towards your chest one more time. Maybe rock side to side. Maybe make some circles. Bring your feet down onto the ground. Bring the soles of your feet together. Let your legs open up or your knees open up. Stretch your hands up. Inhale, draw knees back together. If you are near a wall, ideally doing a legs up the wall pose would be great. If you've never gotten into a legs up the wall pose, it's a little tricky, a little challenging, requires a little bit of shimmying, but you want your rear end as close to the wall as possible. And then you can reach your legs up the wall or come into, let's say, like a bound angle pose, or you could take your legs wide. Lots of different ways to do that. I don't have the luxury of a wall right now, so I'm going to do a supported shoulder stand. Take your block on the lowest height or medium height. From a bridge pose position, you're going to lift your hips up. Place your block underneath your sacrum. It's that triangular spot on your spine. It's very sturdy. So you can stay here or lift the legs up. And let's just hold for about 10 breaths. If you're doing legs up the wall and you want to just turn me off and hang out and legs up the wall for a lot longer, go for it. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to slowly release your legs down. Feet come back onto the ground. And we're going to release our way down to the ground very slowly. So if your block is at the medium height, just lift your hips up and flip it to the lowest height. And we'll pause here for a breath. If you're on the lowest height, hang out with me for one more moment. And then now you can lift your hips up, move your block aside. One more time, knees to chest. And then to end our practice, we're going to just do a supported shavasana with a bolster underneath the legs. You can stack up lots of blankets. You could also, if you used a chair today, you could put your feet up onto your chair. That can be nice as well. Hands come to your sides. Just close your eyes. Tune into your breath. Reminding yourself that in yoga there is no judgment. We make judgment for ourselves. Yoga has this individual journey. And sometimes that journey in your physical part of the practice, you're just spot on. And sometimes you take a step back, or maybe you practice for years and years, and because of your anatomy and your genes, that's just where you are physically. We remind ourselves that yoga is so much more than that physical practice. And I encourage you to stay here in Shavasana for at least 5 more minutes, up to 15 to 20 if you can. Thank you for doing yoga with me. Namaste.